You may be familiar with stool testing. It's all over social media and it's steadily increasing in popularity as people look to get a glimpse of what is going on inside their microbiome. So since it's such a buzzworthy topic right now at the moment, I had to share with you my experience with the whole LTYG community. Again, as with everything that I write and film, what I'm sharing with you comes from my own personal experience with this particular test. So in no way am I saying you should or should not do these tests, as it's definitely a personal decision. I would just like to share with you my particular experience with you today and glean from it what you may. Now, Jeannie actually wrote a fantastic blog on stool testing back in 2013. So I thought I would kind of tack on to that with what I have learned and new testing that's come out since then. And if you haven't read the blog post that I mentioned that she wrote, I'll go ahead and link it in the video description below for you. So, why a stool test, you may ask? The reason people use stool tests is to take a peek at what is going on inside of them. But unfortunately, the regular stool tests that many Western medicine doctors perform are not very thorough. So a lot is missed, and that was my personal experience on this. I had stool tests done by my gastroenterologist for years before I found Jeannie, and even with a toilet full of blood, the test never showed anything. And this was so infuriating to me because frankly, that was just impossible. It didn't make sense in my mind with such extreme symptoms that there was no way there wasn't an imbalance going on in my system. If you're familiar with my journey, I always knew my issues were, fungal, bacterial related, so many things. So when I found Jeannie, I was just so elated because all that my gut had told me was right. And she explained that Crohn's and colitis is bacterial, fungal, viral related, and not just some random disease or autoimmune disease that no one knows really what it is or what to do with it. And so I was mystified by why testing was so difficult. So I did my own research, consulted with a doctor, and of course my coach Dane Johnson, and we were able to do these awesome tests that were continually brought to my attention and things that I really trusted. And one of them was the GI Map test by Diagnostic Solutions. Those were recommended to me by the people that cared deeply for me and had the highest respect for me, so they know their stuff with this test. So without hesitation, I decided to do this test, the GI Map. Now, my first test was during a severe flare of 2 years without relief. To my amazement, when the results returned, it showed only a few of the good bacteria was low, and that I was experiencing bleeding. But of course, that was quite evident already by my constant hemorrhaging. So my team at the time and I were kind of shocked because the severity of the symptoms didn't add up to what the test was reflecting. And I just knew there had to be, more bacterial or fungal or whatever imbalances going on. So here is where it gets a little interesting. I decided to repeat the test knowing that something was up. And after doing more extensive research, I found that people, or actually that it was helpful to do a simple detox right before the test. And for many, it was more accurate for them. And I thought, aha, and I actually declared that out loud because I knew in my gut that this is what had happened in my case. My detox pathways were always blocked. So it quickly made sense to me that when I tested the first time, nothing really showed up because I was probably so blocked up. So test number 2 came along after my better preparation, And lo and behold, it showed multiple infections, multiple imbalances through the roof, everything I had always thought and had suspicions about. So as I began to figure things out, it became clear to me that when testing for imbalances, the pathogens need to be active to be seen on my test. So a detox or something similar was really helpful to kind of kick up the dust, so to speak, get things active so that they showed up on the test and on my test. A good thing to keep in mind if you decide to give this, a try for yourself. So there's a difference between purging and feeling miserable, though. So be gentle if you decide to do a detox, and remember to always follow the directions on the test itself. What I'm mentioning now are just additional suggestions that I found useful. So for me, using an infrared sauna has been so beneficial, and it detoxes me like crazy. So a good thing, of course, when initially starting, but I also had to be near the bathroom all day the following next day. So since then, I kind of learned a few tricks that help me to balance that detox reaction, and I'm going to have a post coming on that soon, so stay tuned for that. But now let's talk about my detox test preparation. So in the weeks leading up to the stool test, I stopped any antipathogen treatment at least 1 week prior to the test, as I didn't want any of those so-called bad guys to be killed and then they would not be reflected in the test. Number 2, I stayed on a fairly liquid-only diet prior to the test. This, of course, is not required, but I wanted to make sure that no food was going to change my test results. I also didn't want any new foods during this time, which could possibly have affected my test, so I didn't have any new foods. 3, I drank lemon in my water for a couple weeks, but right in the morning before the test as well. This has been known to have numerous health benefits and helps to detox because you're creating a more alkaline environment, which could assist with purging things out, and it stimulates bowel movements and digestion. So if you are experiencing constipation, could be beneficial for that. So that was the 3rd thing that I did. Now, I personally didn't take any new supplements or treatments before taking my GI map test, just to, again, ensure better accuracy. Now, I recently read that it may be beneficial to stop using binders at least 3 to 4 days before your test. So similar to antipathogens, we don't want that bad stuff or the pathogens to be removed before we test, or again, the test could potentially not be accurate. The day before I did the test, I did a 30 to 40 minute infrared sauna treatment and just sweat it out, sweat a lot. Now, Jeannie recommends just 5 to 7 minutes when first starting out, so you don't get a reaction, but this, I had already slowly worked my way up to a more intense session, so I did the 30 to 40 minutes. I kept a very basic diet again and drank lots of water with the sauna treatment before and after. I continued with the above protocol just that I mentioned. No antipathogens, no binders, anything that could inhibit the bacterial, fungal, viral growth or shedding. And then after the sauna treatment the next day, knowing I always detox, purposefully, I took the GI map test that next morning, basically when I already was kind of having diarrhea. Not fun, but boy, did I get a good test. So that was really worth it. As I mentioned earlier, some of these tricks and tips since then have helped me to balance that detox reaction. So, keep your eyes peeled for that post on using binders with saunas and stuff like that, which is going to be coming soon. So just keep that in mind. My system is so very sensitive. My reactions are extreme sometimes. So if you have ever had testing done and found it to be inaccurate, maybe try some of these tips that I mentioned today. And if you're searching for an underlying root issue or issues, you may need, a few of the things that I mentioned today to get those pathogens active and expressed when you test. And while the GI map diagnostic test does not specifically test for things like Lyme disease, if there are any pathogens attached to that disease or something like that, though, that could be expressed, perhaps that can show in the test, which happened in my case. So what are the benefits of the GI map test? In my opinion, and with my coaches and everyone, it's one of the most thorough tests I have ever done. So with 5 pages worth of data, all broken down on the Diagnostic Solutions website, you could see even how in-depth it is if you go take a look. And I'll go ahead and link more info in the video description below so you could see for yourself. Before doing anything, of course, always consult your doctor and your body too, of course. Some insurance may cover this test, but it could definitely be a challenge in my experience. So, getting them to cover it. So again, just keep that in mind. According to Jeannie, the Goldberg Clinic also offers this testing. Dr. Paul Goldberg takes the gut microbiotic analysis one step even further, that anything that you are infected with, he has the capability to see with what antipathogen agents are effective against those little nasties. So he has them test substances like colloidal silver, wild oil of oregano, grapefruit seed extract, and even drug antibiotics against those pathogens. The problem with stool tests is that our microbiome is constantly changing. So getting a clear picture of what's actually going on can be a challenge. Pathogens go through life and half cycles, which makes it harder to quote unquote catch them in a test. Persistent infections or yeast bacterial hybrids like MAP, MAP, could have a dormant or active life cycle that could actually take 2 to 3 years to eradicate. And Jeannie talks about this in her blog post, Help for Ongoing SIBO, IBS, and Gut Issues, which I'll also link below for you to check out. And if you're looking to get in touch with your gut microbes, join Jeannie and Dr. Juliet Godsent, who has completely healed herself of Crohn's disease, as they chat about a completely different way to view pathogenic infection. So also linked below. I highly recommend this video. For me, it was actually life-changing, so check it out. With all of this said, if you decide to try a GI map stool test, I hope the tips that I mentioned today could prove helpful to you. Testing is not cheap, so it's frustrating if it doesn't work. So I really hope that if you move forward, the tips that I shared with you today are going to help. And keep in mind, sometimes stool tests are not necessary to treat the root issues. On the other hand, for many people, it's proven to be a fantastic resource when choosing their treatment of choice. So do what is best for you and your gut, of course. Now, what are your thoughts on stool testing? I'd really love to get your feedback. And do you have any experience with it? Please let me know in the comments, or you can even email me at service@listentoyourgut.com if you'd like to share but remain anonymous with your story. Until next time, happy healing, and always remember to listen to your gut.